All right, so 1-6 you can see is a nice quick set of notes. There are no direct practice problems right now associated with 1-6. However, we will see perpendicular lines and perpendicular bisectors. Those terms will come up throughout the course at times. 1-6 is really about constructing these types of segments and angles as listed on here. We will not be constructing in the core geometry class. So the main thing is that you could recognize these types of segments or angles from a picture, and that's what we're going to fill in here. Perpendicular lines, two lines that intersect to form right angles. We know that right angles measure 90 degrees. So let's give an example here. We're just going to have two lines intersecting. I will make them both lines, so I'll put the arrows at the end. And I'm going to put some points around here, so A and B for a line AB here. And then we'll make this one line C, D, so some points there. And we would at least see one 90-degree marking here. So another way that we'll see here is we would see the symbol for perpendicular. So we would say line AB is perpendicular to line CD. But we could also write it as line CD is perpendicular to line AB. So where they intersect, they form right angles. I will go ahead and I'll put the right angle symbol going around here. All right, let's define perpendicular bisector. We already know segment bisector, so the bisector part tells us we're going to have two congruent parts. The perpendicular part describes that we're going to have a 90-degree angle. So a perpendicular bisector is a line, segment, or ray that is perpendicular to a segment at its midpoint. Perpendicular to a segment at its midpoint. So again, let's give a drawing here. So we're going to draw a line, and this will be point G and point H on this line. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the best we can to draw a line that is hopefully about in the middle of that other line. E and point F here. And the markings that would be on this picture to denote that EF is going to be a perpendicular bisector of GH is going to be this. So we would see the 90-degree angle for the term perpendicular part of it, and then the bisector part means that we have two congruent segments. So we would state that EF, line EF, is a perpendicular bisector of, and I'm going to say segment GH. The line goes on forever, so it could really be of the line, but we're going to put segment GH. All right, so we're going to go further. We're going to do a couple quick drawings for these terms here near the bottom of the notes. Congruent segments. We've already learned of congruent segments. What would that look like if we had to label that segments were congruent? This is just an example. That's all that this is. Things are not drawn to scale. As you can see, my line doesn't necessarily appear that each segments are congruent, but because I marked them, that means they are congruent. Congruent angles. We saw this as well. Angles that have the same measure. So we can sketch something like this. And this ray would end up really being the angle bisector. Because if we have a pair of congruent angles, they may share a common side, the angles, but the angles could certainly be drawn as two separate angles as well. So these are just examples down here at the bottom. Doesn't mean it's the only way. The one thing you want to look at anytime, whether it be something that is a construction that you make accurately as you can, you want to really pay attention to the markings, making sure you're marking things congruent that should be. If it's perpendicular, you're putting the 90-degree angle like we are here in perpendicular bisector. And finally, angle bisector. Because I drew congruent angles the way that I did up above, this is really going to be pretty much the same thing. Angle bisector, we have to have a ray that is bisecting an angle. All right, so there we go. Angle bisector. So the ray is the bisector of this angle. There's your 1/6. Move on to the assignment within your packet. Be ready for Monday.